This is Zara Recaps. Today, Zara Recaps is going to explain sci-fi, action, and horror movie called Day of Reckoning. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The family uses this distraction to finally drive away from the area, taking a wild road in the mountains while hordes of monsters flock to the city from all sides. Eventually they finally make it to Ted's hideout, which is a truly concrete bunker. The doors are closed and there are cameras on the roof, but nobody comes out when the family starts yelling and hitting the door, begging to be allowed inside. What they are unaware of is that Ted is seated at his computer, monitoring them through the cameras while someone holds a gun to his head. At that moment, a horde of monsters appears in the mountains and begins rushing to the shelter. As the family panics, Dave grabs a tire iron to protect his loved ones, but then the door of the bunker finally opens and they rush inside. The family reunites with Ted and his wife Stella, but they are also taken aback to find Garrett there. Apparently his father used to be war buddies with Ted and he got separated from his unit, so he came here to ask for help. Dave notices Garrett has a gun, which makes him suspicious. Then the group shares a meal, but they can't help noticing on the monitors how the monsters are trying to smash the door, making everyone nervous. Using the radio is also useless because they can only hear screams. Maddie asks how the monsters sense them, and Garrett explains they react to light and heat, but he wonders if they see people's souls. He also shares the story about how he survived the first Judgment Day. He was employed at a refinery at the time, and when the monsters infiltrated, he managed to submerge himself in a pool of salty mud. He buried himself and had to endure hearing the monsters kill all his colleagues and friends. While Garrett is distracted by his storytelling, Ted signals Dave to grab and hide a knife, unaware that outside, a centipede-like monster is crawling into a small hole in the mesh covering the window. Then Garrett announces he'll be on watch duty first, so Ted invites the others to stay and play cards instead of sleeping, looking meaningfully at Dave. However, Garrett notices the gesture and draws his gun from its holster, forcing Dave to put down the knife as he explains that Ted had been against allowing him to stay. It was Stella who had taken pity on him. He survived the first time and he's determined to survive again no matter the cost. Suddenly, Tyler lunges at Garrett in an attempt to wrestle the gun away, but Garrett easily pushes him aside. An argument ensues, but Maddie interrupts it by pointing out they can't hear the monsters anymore. Then the centipede-like monster jumps out of the wall and bites Stella. Ted swiftly removes the creature from his wife's neck and douses it with salt. Dave punches Garrett to take his gun and tries to shoot the creature. The little monster gaps all the bullets, but Maddie manages to kill it with the knife. Afterward they tie up Garrett and try to stop Stella's bleeding, but they'll need proper medical care. At that moment they notice on the monitor that a huge beast is repeatedly hitting the front door, trying to get in. Dave speaks they should leave, but Ted doesn't want to go out, saying his wife won't survive outside. Stella urges him to leave and reminds him about the underground passage beneath the bunker that leads to the mountains. Garrett mentions he has a car with a full tank and can transport everyone to the gate. The group is uncertain whether to trust him until Garrett emphasizes that it's in his best interest to assist them. It turns out Tyler is there with Maddie, who is very nervous and scared because her parents left. Tyler promises that he isn't like his dad and will never leave her alone. Suddenly, a loud cry is heard and huge flocks of birds seem in the sky, which is another sign of the reckoning. People in the park run in panic and soon the roads are filled with families trying to leave town. Dave becomes trapped in a colossal traffic jam, but upon observing the birds soar past, he exits the car and continues the search on foot. At the gate, workers are examining the systems when they hear unusual sounds. A monster suddenly emerges and starts assaulting one of the men. Garrett flees while the other soldiers open fire, but it appears regular bullets don't harm the beast. Moments later, Dave finally finds Tyler and Maddie right before the emergency sirens begins ringing through the whole city. Luckily Laura shows up with Milton and they take the three of them away in Milton's car. There is around an hour left before the eclipse, and the city is in complete chaos. With people trying to escape, there's a traffic jam on every road. The family gets stranded for a while and sees cultists walking around the cars, frightening drivers with their painted faces and their conviction that the end is approaching. When Milton finally spots an opening, he drives as swiftly as he can and manages to get the family to the shelter. Unfortunately, there's pandemonium here too, with many people pleading for a place inside while the military states that only women and children are allowed. Dave tells Tyler to go with Laura and Maddie into the shelter, but after stepping inside, Tyler regrets it and runs back to his father saying he would never leave him behind. The women follow him out and at that moment the scoreboard announces that the shelter is completely filled. The group hurries back to the car while deliberating their options. Dave wants to go to Ted's hideout in the desert while Milton suggests hiding at the school because it's closer and it has a basement. They soon get stuck in another traffic jam, so they end up getting out of the car as an earthquake hits the area and the eclipse begins. With the world falling into darkness, the monsters start making their way out to attack. They immediately take over the city and start killing without mercy just like it happened 15 years ago. Dave insists they should evacuate the city and wants to drive, but Milton becomes upset because it's his car and he believes he knows how to ensure everyone's safety. An argument ensues and punches are thrown, but the fight is interrupted when a flying monster dives in and takes Milton away. While Laura screams, Dave shoves her into the car and he takes over the wheel to finally take his family out of the city. As they drive alongside the canal, they debate theories about the creature's origins, pondering whether they were divinely sent or not. Eventually, the car begins to run low on fuel, and Dave suggests finding a substitute for it. He parks next to a bunch of abandoned cars and starts checking inside to discover there are bodies in them. When he finally finds an empty one, he gets inside, only for the driver hidden in the back seat to pull him down as he reveals there's a monster nearby. It keeps searching around the vehicles for more victims, and when it passes near the two men, thankfully it doesn't see them and keeps going. Then the monster finds one of the bodies and begins eating it, so very carefully and quietly Dave starts rolling the car back to Laura and the kids. Now both cars are standing side by side, so Laura and the kids try to pass from one car to another. They're very quiet about it, but the monster still notices them and comes after them. The elderly man exits the vehicle and sprinkles salt on the creature, momentarily halting it before it pounces on him and begins to devour him. In a power plant outside town, employees are celebrating a coworker's birthday when they suddenly see something unusual on the security cameras. There's a shadow moving in the shaft and a worker goes to inspect it, only to suddenly be attacked by a mysterious creature. The guy tries to return to the office, but a bunch of monsters follow him and start killing everyone in the building. As an eclipse obscures the sun, the creatures start appearing all over the planet, killing millions of people and destroying cities. The news calls it Judgment Day, as soldiers are sent to combat these monsters in a war that lasts the entire eclipse. Millions of lives and tons of resources are lost in the battle, but eventually, all the creatures are exterminated, and humanity begins to rebuild. They design protective installations known as gates, just in case the creatures ever decide to return. 15 years pass, and the world is living through a normal routine again. Dave is working as a janitor for a company that doesn't pay him well even when he has to enter the shafts to dispose of dead animals. At the local school, Laura works as a teacher and befriends fellow teacher Milton, who keeps asking her out on a date. Laura divorced Dave ages ago and is still dealing with some issues, but today she finally accepts Milton's invitation. Meanwhile, her son Tyler is meeting with his girlfriend Maddie, who is worried about the upcoming eclipse. Tyler assures her there's nothing to worry about because there have been many eclipses in the last 15 years and nothing happened. Meanwhile, Officer Garrett is called by the staff from one of the gates, asking him to come over because they've confirmed major seismic activity and containment has been approved. When Garrett arrives at the gate, he gets the sense that this time it isn't a drill. He checks on all the systems, only for a power box to explode, causing them to lose an entire grid. In the city, Dave goes to pick up Tyler at Laura's house, and while the boy plays video games, the parents end up arguing. It turns out Laura had been pregnant with Tyler during the last catastrophe, and Dave hadn't been there for her, and she hasn't forgiven him yet. Tyler interrupts them and gets to leave with his dad. Later in the middle of the night, Dave gets a call from Uncle Ted, who is sure that the new Judgment Day will be tomorrow and invites Dave to bring his family to his shelter before the eclipse begins. Tyler is watching the news and is troubled to see that millions of deceased fish are washing up on beaches everywhere. This is one of the indications that was observed 15 years ago. At that moment, the initial creature emerges at the gate, stealthily ascending the stairs. Simultaneously, Laura calls Dave, mentioning she's watched the news and wants Tyler to return home because Milton has secured a shelter. Dave wants Tyler to remain with him and a disagreement erupts, during which Tyler receives a message that prompts him to leave the house discreetly. When Dave eventually goes searching for him, he discovers only a note in his room with Maddie's contact information. Milton continues to press Laura because the shelter is filling up, so they need to arrive soon. When Laura informs Milton that Tyler is missing, Milton uses the boy's cell phone number to pinpoint the location using specialized software and locates him at the skate park. They agree to depart, but before they leave, Ted discloses he possesses a complete arsenal of weapons, and everyone equips themselves. As the group enters the tunnel, Dave opens the front door and dispatches the first creature that attempts to enter before joining the others. After securely sealing the tunnel, they emerge outside and notice Stella struggling to walk, showing signs of transforming into a creature herself. Later, as they walk along a road, Tyler spots a monster simply standing there. The beast seems to be dead, so Maddie tries to touch it, only for Tyler to stop her. When she turns around, a long tentacle comes out of a hole in the ground and grabs her legs, trying to drag her away. As Maddie screams wildly, Tyler and Dave grip her back, and Laura shoots at the tentacle to make it retrieve. Once Maddie is free, the group runs away, and Garrett convinces Dave to untie him so he can help in case of another attack. What the others don't know is that Dave is hiding an injury on his arm. Sometime later they make it to the top of the mountain and see the city is burning. When they find Garrett's car, they are devastated to see it won't start. At that moment, monsters appear atop the mountain and begin charging toward them. Garrett frantically attempts attempts to restart the engine while Stella, in a desperate act, takes Ted's gun to end her own life before she completes her transformation. Ted immediately fights her until he takes the gun back and begs her to get in the car, but Dave recognizes there's no hope and drags Ted back. Stella waits for the monsters to arrive and they quickly eat her. Garrett finally manages to start the car and the group escapes, leaving the monsters behind. On the way, they pick up a radio signal and hear that almost all the shelters couldn't withstand the onslaught and were ruined. Eventually they reach at the gate but nobody answers the radio, not to mention the door is open. The group carefully makes their way inside and discovers there's no power, so Garrett and Dave decide to fix it while the others go to look for a first aid kit because they've revealed that Ted has a wound in his back. The others take care of Ted while Dave restores electricity, and Garrett explains that the gate was prepared for a second invasion and tons of salt water had been pumped in, but the hole was too deep. Once the power is working again, Dave and Garrett begin making their way back, but suddenly Garrett feels blood soaking on his hand and looks up to find a body. At the same time, something in the darkness roars. The duo rushes back to the group to discuss their options since there are 2 hours left until the end of the eclipse, and Garrett offers to hide in a chemical warehouse because its doors are blast-proof. The moment they leave the medical bay, a distorted human attacks Garrett, who fights together with Dave to deal with it. They defeat the creature, but the noise they made has gotten the attention of more monsters. Terrified, Garrett swiftly runs through a door and closes it behind him, leaving everyone behind. Then he gives himself some kind of injection to start fighting back the transformation. Dave takes his family to another room and notices there are dispersal lines there, which means the tank is on the other side of the wall. This gives him an idea for a plan. He'll funnel the salt water through the tank pipes to keep the monsters out. Before he leaves, Laura kisses him. At that moment the door breaks, so the family runs away. Dave makes his way through the ventilation, noticing a monster devouring its prey in the room. When he reaches the tank, he moves stealthily as he opens the faucet, allowing water to flow into the containers. Then Dave climbs back, but the monster detects him and begins chasing him, grabbing hold of his leg. As Dave fights back, he sprinkles it with salt, causing the monster to crumble to dust. Meanwhile, the others find themselves surrounded by monsters and Tyler opens fire on them. Abruptly, Dave's voice is heard from the loudspeaker asking them to turn on the fire alarm. The monsters are getting closer, so Ted tells Tyler to protect the family before going after the monsters with an axe, but several beasts jump on him at once and kill him quickly. Tyler keeps on shooting only to run out of ammo, so he turns on the fire alarm, causing salt water to start falling all over the monsters, making them crumble into dust while they squeal in pain. As the eclipse concludes, all the monsters begin retreating through the gate to their realm, triggering another earthquake. Laura and the children try to get moving too, only to come across Garrett, who is losing his mind to the transformation. He shoots Tyler and hits them on the shoulder, but before he can shoot again, Dave appears behind him and hits Garrett in the head with a fire extinguisher. While Dave reunites with his family, a huge monster appears from below and it lunges at Garrett, swallowing him whole. The family rushes into the medical unit and concocts a saline solution in a cylinder. As soon as the monster kicks down the door, they hurl the mixture at it, instantly killing the creature. Afterward, the family goes outside and finds the world has been utterly destroyed, but now they're ready to begin rebuilding again. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to channel for more amazing videos.